just going through the contract here, and if you didn't catch the video on the information about brokerage services and how that's a great tool to get your client protected by having them sign a buyer rep agreement, then grab that video, take a look at it. I wanted to break down the 1 to 4 family residential contract. Of course, maybe you're catching this video from somewhere else. This is the Texas promulgated contracts, and this is a great understanding. Went through this just a few minutes ago just to confirm, and there's 17 different negotiable items on the contract. In Texas, we don't write a contract as a real estate agent or a broker. What we do is we fill out a contract. They're promulgated forms. They're written by the broker lawyer committee, and so there's a lot of different things. There's some basic information in them, of course. What's the property? Who's the parties to the contract? Agents information, things of that nature. But so often people get hung up on page 1. They get hung up on the amount. And so when they're looking at the amount and they're only focusing on that, they're losing out on a lot of opportunities to, if you will, if you're working with a buyer, a lot of opportunities to distract the seller a little bit, because all that matters at the end of the day is the net. And in a down market, which is what we are today, in 2020, we're in October of 2020. We're in a not a down market, excuse me. We're in a market that has dried up, basically, in the sense of inventory. We have minimal inventory, so part of the process is just winning the deal. And so there's 17 different things on a contract to where you can protect your client and still win the deal. I'm going to break those down. I'm going to do them in a lot of different ways, but I want to start with just a couple of pieces to the puzzle. Of course, on page 1, we've got the sales price. We've got whether it's a cash deal or not. Earnest money. Earnest money is actually something that I think it's overlooked by so many agents and buyers too. For the seller, seeing a large amount in earnest money gives them confidence that the buyer is actually capable of fulfilling the contract. And of course, let's say that there's something wrong with the house, you've got an option period, we'll talk about that in a minute, you've got some other pieces, but definitely consider putting in, don't just, you're wanting to buy a $500,000 house, don't say, oh yeah, well, I'll put $2,000 down or something. Do a minimum of at least 1%. Do something that helps you win that deal. Another piece to the puzzle is the title policy if you're on the buying side. Right? If you're on the buying side. In Texas, 99% of the time of the deals or transactions that I've been involved with, the seller ends up paying for the title policy, but that's a negotiable item. There's a box in paragraph 6 that says title policy, seller shall furnish to buyer at buyer or seller's expense. Check the box, choose. So if you're the buyer, maybe instead of focusing so much on some of the other things, why not offer to pay for the title policy? Depending on the amount of the house, it's only $2,000 or $3,000, but at the bottom line, then that looks really good for the seller. Help you win the deal in today's market, what we're dealing with here in 2020. So that's page 1 of the contract. I'm going to touch a couple more, then we'll stop, and then we'll bring this up again in another video. Going down to a couple other things, survey. I'm going to skip past survey. A lot of times in the state of Texas, what I see is the buyer's agent writing up this contract and it says we want to use the seller's survey. Well, problem with that is they don't always know where it is. There's timelines. Doing the net sheet as a listing agent, which is what I primarily do, doing a net sheet, I have to show that as being an expense for the seller just in case they're obligated to pay for it based on the contract. Why wouldn't you, as a buyer's agent, why wouldn't you recommend to your client to have their own survey done? So it has their name on the survey, it's their surveyor that did it, that signed it for their own protection. Just my thought, you can use a prior survey, but that's definitely something to take into consideration. Objections is on the same page, on page 2. Objections is something that is overlooked as well. Remember, if your client says, hey, we love this house, we want to put a pool in the backyard, the yard's huge, we want to do this, but that's why they're buying the house, make that a condition of the sale, that they have to be able to put a pool into the backyard. HOA may prevent it. City restrictions may prevent it. Make sure that's something that can be done so that can be investigated and looked through the process and the due diligence period, a way to protect your client. One more thing on this one, just to make sure you don't miss, and that is just making sure that in this that it brings in the addendum for the HOA requirements. If there is an HOA and it is a requirement, make sure that that's noted on here. So that's the first couple of pages of the Texas contract. I'll grab the next video. You'll see some of the other pieces that go along with it. I want to break down a few that are really interesting, and then we'll touch on some addenda as well later. Talk to you soon.